every day in the vineyard of the Lord. I want to be a worker strong and brave. I want to trust in Jesus how to save. All who will truly come shall find a happy home in the kingdom of the Lord. I will work, I will pray in the vineyard of the Lord. I will work, I will pray, I will labor every day in the vineyard of the Lord.
Pray if you please. Dearest Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this opportunity to escape the outside world this midweek. Turn our hearts and minds toward the Word. Pray, Heavenly Father, everything that's done here this evening is going to please your Son. We pray for those who are missing from the congregation this evening. We pray that you would them. Comfort them and heal them in the only way that we can. Please be with each one of us as we prepare to put our minds toward you for our classes. Please be with us and give us our message in Christ's name.
There's a slave. I'll say cameras that makes it work. Really work. They're real good right now. David Crosby's got others. He might come out of retirement. We got punchers.
I got Cedric turned around. No, I haven't, but it's a right stat.
Soldier golf shoes. Yeah.
You saw them?
That's great.
So when you come home, you realize that you got to still get to run. We can play it.
Did you see the crowd calling Tiger on Friday day? It's like a Sunday.
I don't believe that ever showed part 3. They showed it.
Yeah, that's they maybe started.
I just happened to catch it on Instagram.
Showed that little shot.
Yeah, 16. They don't do that. That's not in the part 3. Part 3 is a whole different course.
turn to 1 Samuel chapter number 25. We're going to go back just a little bit. Trina reminded me that we had not quite finished that. There were a couple of looking at the situation that happened with David and Nabal, and we wanted to just look at what happened at the very end of that, because I think Abigail and what happened was some things that we can consider as far as dealing with issues, people that are not actually acting right, and how she acted and how he acted at the end of that. So if you want to turn to 1 Samuel chapter 25, and let's go back and we'll start at let's see, where David decides that he's going to go down there and get him. Let's see. 1 Samuel 25 and verse number 26. 1 Samuel 25, verse number 26 says, Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee, and to seek thy soul, but the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. And the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out, as out of the middle of a sling. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, that this shall be no grief unto thee, nor offense of heart unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt well with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid. And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which hath sent thee this day to meet me. I'm going to stop right there at 32 for just a minute and talk about this situation right here. We know what had happened as far as David had sent to Nabal to get some supplies. He had done work in protecting Nabal and his land, his shepherds, his sheep, and all of that. And Nabal just offended the men that went down there and said he was not going to do anything like that. And David got angry and determined that he was going to destroy everything that had to do with Nabal. So Abigail gets together this offering to go back. And this, what we just read, is her appeal to him not to act in an angry way. And what I had pointed out, or what we discussed earlier or last week, was that the avenue that she took in order to try to appease or to calm down David in this particular situation, I thought that there was something within that we could look at, because I don't know, y'all probably never have any times when y'all are at odds with people and they offend you, and, you're upset and you just want to smack them, so to speak. But we have to be able to control ourselves and act like Christians and do the right thing. And I think that Abigail showed in the way that she approached David a formula to some degree that we can use to try to calm the situation down. And that's what I wanted to look back at for just a minute. What were some things that she did that caused this, David to back off from what he had planned on doing? What did she say about David? All right. To think about the situation that you're overreacting or reacting rashly. Does anybody know what kiss is? No, I think that's just kiss. Kiss.
Bragging somebody and tell them what's wrong with bragging.
Right. And that's kind of the idea behind it. You try to further first, and that's what she said, my Lord. She built David up and all and how God, and it was true as what she was saying about him. God had promised to give him the kingdom. God said he was going to bless him. He'd already been anointed by Samuel. And so she's just pointing out all the blessings that he's got and what he's got going forward. But then she says, you don't need to be doing this, taking matters into your own hands. And so she brings it back to the reality of, he's got to do things the right way. No matter how much you've been blessed, no matter what position you're in is compared to those that you're dealing with, you still have to treat them in the right and proper way as individuals and as people with a soul and that sort of thing. And then she went further to say, well, I've brought these things and I want you to have them and, to remember me and how I've done and how I've acted towards you when you come into your position of power. So I just wanted to point that out right there. She gives us a formula, and God gives us a formula on how we should deal with people in situations that are trying when we are at the height of our emotions and dealing with problems with people in life. Any comments or questions about that?
Some people are good at just walking away and mistreat you and others and you know it's wrong and awful if they would be kind of stuff and he's just not there. There's some people are good at just walking away, and there's some people that think they need to be told, you make a move, so you do need a formula to not get yourself in huge problems.
I think that there are, it's like any other character trait or skill. Everybody has certain qualities that they're good at, and there are others of us, and I think when you say there are some people that are able to just walk away or turn their back or turn the other cheek, there are some like me that, want to just, you shouldn't act that way and just say what you think sometimes. But it's something that you have to develop one way or another. You can always improve on that. But you're right. There are some people that can have a natural knack for diffusing situations and taking things and making them less powerful.
Seeing
The
world's gotten.
Emotions direct a lot of how we react to things, and we can't let our emotions control the situation, and that's what she was trying to do. All right, let's pick up from there and go on to the end of the chapter. Verse number 33, and it says, and blessed be thy advice, blessed be thou, which has kept me this day from coming to shed blood and from avenging myself with mine own hand. For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hast tasted and come to meet me, surely that it had been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house like a feast of a king, and Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing less or more until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died. All right, so stopping right there for just a minute, verse number 38. What happened to Nabal? Anybody got any ideas? Huh? The Lord smote him and said his heart within him. Or he had a stroke or a heart attack or whatever. She told him how close he came to dying or something. I don't know. But physically he was taken by the situation. Did Nabal get what he deserved? Is that the right way to put it? I don't know. Yeah. it says that the Lord smote him. So he got, and the lesson that we can learn from this is that if we will give it time, whatever the situation is, as angry as we get or as upset as we get, whatever is going on, our handling the situation is not going to fix it. Does it make us feel better to take things in our own hands and get people told or straighten things out? What is the reaction that we have from that? Does it fix us inside? Makes us feel like we've done something, doesn't it? Alright. So but we may feel that. Is it the reality? If we take matters into our own hands, is that the right and proper way to do it?
I don't get like, but sometimes you do have to tell people that, they're acting wrong. You just wait to do it.
I think so. Okay, so let's look at it this way. If we do, David was not doing it to straighten Nabal out, right? David was trying to get vengeance for what it was. So, if what you're saying and what David was doing are two completely different things. If we're just getting people told because they've made us mad and we're trying to settle the score, that sort of thing, then, we may feel better inside, but we're not really better. You understand that part of it. But certain situations have to be dealt with, but they have to be dealt with in the right and proper way. And whether we do it or not, straightening people out on this account of Nabal, it's going to be straightened out one way or another, right? God's going to take care of it. It may be a situation where somebody needs to be put in place as far as right or wrong.
True. That's all I'm.
Yes, and we all understand that. But whether we do it or don't, God's going to take care of it or not. We need to be doing it for the right reason. If we're doing it for what you're saying, if you're doing it for what you're saying, then we need to be doing it because of our concern for them, not because of our own selfish resurrection. We are. To the best. Right. We have an obligation to do the best that we can to try to do that. But we have to just at the snap, we got to handle it the best we can tactically and to get the best results. All right. How's that for Psychology 101, right? Yeah, anyway, but we're looking at what God said and how God had David to deal with it, what he told, how he handled David in this particular situation. Because David was wrong in handling it the way that he was going about to handle it, even though he had been unjustly treated by Nabal. All right, let's go on and pick up at number 30, where we get to 39. It said, or 38, and it came to pass after 10 days after that, the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. Alright, so tell me, what does the Bible describe here as far as David's attitude towards Nabal? What do you see in this? What does David say about Nabal and how he feels about the situation and what happened to him? Alright, so that opens up a can of worms right there, doesn't it, David?
He was still going to take it in his own hands if something happened. It says, he kept it from evil. But if Nabal was still living more years, and decided to take care of himself.
He prevented anything from happening in the future, too, as far as that goes. My question kind of is that, well, it almost sounds like David was relishing in the fact that Nabal was dead. And I don't know, I may be reading a little bit more than that. I mean, it was the fact that, he may have just been happy that the situation had been taken care of and the Lord had handled the situation in the way that was to his benefit. So.
Sure, plenty of people who get their stuff,
Absolutely.
happy about that.
Yep. There are circumstances where people that happen that are of a benefit, and we should be happy that the benefit is there, and the people are not suffering, or that things are turning for the right as far as that goes, without celebrating the fact that a soul has gone to hell in that respect. Anybody else? Verse number 40, and when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they spake unto her, saying, David sent us to take thee to him to wife. And she arose and bowed herself on her face to the earth, and said, Behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. And Abigail hasted and arose and rode upon an ass with 5 damsels of hers that went after her, and she went after the messengers of David and became his wife. And David also took Ahinom and of Jezreel, and they were both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Phaltai, the son of Laish, which was at Gade. All right, so David took her for wife. She was a woman of character, knew how to deal with these situations, and she had inherited her fortune too, Nabal being dead. So David had 600 men and families to take care of, and that was what he was trying to do with Nabal's offering anyway, what he requested from him. So what happened in the long run? Nabal's stuff became David's stuff to take care of the problems that he had. So God handled the situation for David, and David got what he needed without him having to do something that was rash or in his own control, as opposed to letting God take care of the situation. But you never know ahead of time exactly how God's going to handle the situation, but we do know that God will handle it in the right and appropriate way. That's an important lesson in the Old Testament that helps us as far as dealing with circumstances that are uncomfortable or hard to deal with in life. Any questions or comments about that? All right. Chapter number 26, we're going to look at David as he continues with the troubles in his life, specifically with Saul. If you want to turn to 26, we'll start at verse number 1 there. Son, you want to read a little bit for us?
Saying, doth not David 97 male of Ashima, which is before Shammah? Then Saul rose and went down to the wilderness of Zion, having 3,000 chosen men of Israel to seek David in the wilderness of Zion. And Saul pitched in the hill of Shiloh, which is before Shishai, by the way, but David abode in the wilderness, and Saul came into the wilderness. And David therefore sent out spies and understood that Saul was coming in very deep. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched, and David beheld the place where Saul lay, and Abner the son of Ner, the captain of the host, and David lay in the trench, and the people pitched round about.
And you will read?
Then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, saying, Who will go down with me to Saul to the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with thee. So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster. And Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear, even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time. And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said furthermore, As the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, for his day shall come to die, and he shall descend into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch forth mine hand against the Lord's anointed, but I pray thee, take thou now the spear that is in his bolster, and the cruse of water, and let us go.
What you will read?
So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's holster and got them away, and no man saw it nor knew it, neither awake, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. Then David went over to the other side and stood on the top of a hill afar off, a great space being between them. And David cried to the people and to Abner, the son of Ner, saying, Answerest thou not, Abner? Then Abner answered and said, Who art thou that criest to the king? And David said to Abner, Art not thou a valiant man, and who is like to thee in Israel? Wherefore then hast thou not kept thy lord the king? For there came one in to destroy the king, thy lord.
All right, Glenda, you want to read?
This thing is not good that thou hast done, as the Lord liveth, ye are worthy to die, because ye have not kept your master, the Lord's appointment. And now see where the king's spear is, and the curse of the water that was at his boaster. And Saul knew David's voice, and said, Is this thy voice, my son David? And David said, It is my voice, my Lord, O King. And he said, Wherefore doth my Lord thus pursue after his servant? For what have I done, or what evil is in my hand? Now therefore I pray thee that my Lord the King hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred thee up against me, let him accept an offering. But if thou be the children of men, curse thee out before the Lord, for they have driven me out of this day from abiding in inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go serve other gods.
Here.
Now therefore let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord, for the king of Israel has come out to seek and flee, as when one that hunt a partridge in the mountains. Then said Saul, I have sinned, return my son David, for I will no more do thee harm, because my soul is precious in thine eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool, and have erred exceedingly. And David answered and said, Behold the king's spear, and let one of the young men come over and fetch it. The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I will not stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. And behold, as thy life was much set by this day in thine eyes, so let my life be much set by in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be thou, my son David, thou shalt both do great things, and also shalt still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place.
All right, very good, thank you. What about consistency? Can we see an inconsistency in the life of David here? Having looked at what we looked at concerning Nabal, and now looking at what he's done as far as Saul is concerned. He was ready to completely destroy Nabal, but yet he had opportunity. Saul had been trying to kill him, and yet he's willing to cut him all the slack in the world and not do anything to harm him. Does that tell us anything?
You know, God had chosen Saul to be king, and that's waiting on him. He was anointed by God.
All right, so does that say that depending on a person's position in life, you should treat them differently? What do you think, David?
I thought it was fine, normal. But he had a position that God had given him, and until he was delivered by God, he still would have I think it's, Christians, preachers, whoever, we honor each other, but observe each other. I think that's one of the, in a sense, they put up, he wasn't going to break out of brackets. He knew the time was coming.
Yeah. I think that we, people in positions of authority, the Bible does direct us to what? Pray for kings and those in positions of authority. So they should have, we should petition God in their behalf because of the directions that we have on that. As far as any more importance in the sense of soul and as a person, no. We should not treat anybody any different than we do one another in that respect. So just because of the position of authority is what he was looking at there, not because he was a person of more power.
There's more consequences there for minister and taking that position through the wrong means.
Yeah, he would have divided the people rather than uniting the country. If he had killed Saul, he would have lost a lot of potential followers in having a united kingdom. So he benefited from doing it that way. Absolutely.
They have history. Yeah. They have history.
He probably still cared about Saul so and loved him. But Saul, he knew at one point later he was. And when you get in situations, even though you don't understand why they got so wicked, you still worry about their soul. You still worry about, you don't see his eyes and they straighten up their life. And that's, to me, if David wasn't mad about some heart, he had to make one.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Number one, what do we know about the Ziphites? I've got down there verse 1 in 1 Samuel chapter 23, verse 19. Somebody want to say what it says about the Ziphites? All right, it did in the same area before. What does the Ziphites want to do?
What they want to do.
Yeah, what was the plan of the Ziphites when this? All right, so we're introduced to the Ziphites, and they're approaching Saul and saying he's down here hiding out with us. And so Saul says, "Well, you go find out exactly where he is, and I'll come down there." So this is the second time that they are trying to put together a plan to help Saul kill David. And so there are just some people that have something against us. You ever had anybody like that no matter what you do or how you act or not knowing what the situation was, that they're just, that's the way they feel about you? Maybe you have somebody like, did you feel that way about it? I don't know. But there are certain circumstances that there's just no way to control it. No matter what you do, people are going to have an attitude. And so that's the way these people were. For whatever benefit they may have gathered from it by helping Saul, they were going to do it. And they keep proving it over and over and over again. And so we can expect that out of people sometimes, I believe. Number two, where was Saul when David found him?
Laying in a trench.
All right, in the trench. That don't sound like a place for a king to be to me, right? Yeah. I read a commentary. Kaufman said that it was more like they circled the wagons. He was in the middle of the group. It wasn't necessarily that he was in a trench, but they had set it up where he was in the center and everybody else was about him. So it's just a phrase that describes that particular thing. It may have been in the trench. That's an idea behind that. But he was heavily guarded, well protected in the situation that he was in. He was in the middle and everybody was around him, is the point that's being made. Number three, who went with David to the camp of Saul? Abishai. All right, so he had enough bravery or enough courage to do that. He's described as one of David's most influential, powerful men within his army throughout the time that you study David. And he was willing to go right into the middle of the enemy to fight for or to help David out. How do we take and apply that today? Who does David represent, I guess, in the Old Testament? What is the figure that he, figuratively, who does David represent? Christ, absolutely. All right, so David asked, who's going to go with me into the middle of the enemy's camp? Yeah, and so looking at that, Abishai is an example of what we should be as far as Christians in the fight for what is right and to defend the king in our lives. No different. His was a physical situation. Ours is spiritual, but it may call upon us to be in a position where we have to make a situation, decisions of a situation where we have to do something physically to go a certain place that is not comfortable or could be dangerous because of the cause of Christ. We have to be like Abishai. How many people were asked that question? Who will go with me? 3. Who?
Abishai.
No, just 2. Ahimelech and Abishai. Where was Ahimelech? He didn't go. So we got an example of one who decided that he would be brave enough to do whatever he was called upon to do, and we have one that we don't know what happened to him. So, do you want to be Abishai or you want to be Ahimelech? I guess might be a good sermon topic, right? All right, number 4. What did Abishai suggest David allow him to do? Verse number 8. Kill him. All right, take his own spear, that thing that he had thrown at David a couple of times, Jonathan once or twice. And it's kind of interesting. He says, let me smite him once. It won't take twice. It'll be done with one thing. And this is the same circumstances that was happening in the cave of Adullam when they found Saul in there. They wanted him dead. Abishai was right there beside him. He had opportunity to do it. And David said no at that point. It's kind of interesting. David had the courage and the wisdom not to do it the first time, and now what happens? The same situation is put in front of him again. Is there any lesson that can be learned in that? You're not going to be able to get over it one time and be done with it. You're going to have to fight the battle over and over and over again as far as doing the right thing. And so David was able to do what he was supposed to do in the cave of Adullam, and now he's able to do it here with Saul. When given the opportunity to take advantage of the situation and take matters into his own hands, he didn't do it. He was able to overcome the temptation on multiple occasions, and that's what we've got to learn to do as well. Number 6, give David's reasoning concerning the life of Saul. Verse number 10. Alright. He knew that the Lord would take care of the situation. He didn't know when or how, but he knew that God would handle the situation. What do we know? God's going to handle every situation. We don't know when and we don't know how, but if we trust in God, we know that eventually it's going to be handled, and we don't have to take matters into our own hands to straighten the situation out. Why didn't anyone wake up in Saul's camp? Verse number 12. Heavy sleepers. Yeah, that's true. I would have probably slept through it. Yeah. So what is that saying? Why did it happen the way it did? Because of the providence.
Intervention.
Yeah, providential intervention. God intervened. He caused them to sleep to the point where they wouldn't wake up. Does God operate that way today? No, absolutely he does. God is working behind the scenes. I mean, that's doctrine. If we don't believe that God's in control of things and operating in our best interest, then we are of all people most miserable in our faith. We have to believe, even in the worst of times, that God is doing what needs to be done in our best interest. Romans 8, verse 28, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, and who are called according to his purpose. So we understand that providence is a part of God's operation, not miraculously, and this does not say anything about a miraculous intervention. It just says that God operated in a way that was beyond normal circumstances to make it work for David, and he'll do it for us as well. Number 8, what did David have a discussion with Abner about after leaving Saul's camp? Verses 13 through 16. David gets up on the other hill, and he doesn't call out to Saul, he calls out to who? Why? We don't really know why, but what was the discussion about?
Abner was responsible for protecting Saul, and he's like, hello, you didn't do your job. I think Abner always kind of went at David anyway.
And it does say that, Saul was getting bad information, advice from people about David, and probably Abner was among those chief people that were trying to destroy David because David was so successful, and there was a jealousy there among those other people. And so, for practical purposes, Abner was a part of that inner circle that was causing David so many problems. That he was just pointing out, does that point out something to Saul as well? Yeah, possibly. You need to be aware of the fact that everything's just not perfect like you think it is, Saul, in your life, and so you need to make sure about things. Number 9, what picture did David paint of himself to Saul? Verses 17 through 20. He had done this in the cave of Adullam as well. What did he say about himself? He called himself a dog. In Adullam, he called himself a flea, partridge. Those things are what? When you look at things in life, those things look like things that are of importance. Now, things that you should be putting your time on. Was David belittling himself? Belittling himself. Would we call it that? Well, that's probably not the right word. Humbling himself or acknowledging the fact that he was not as big a deal as Saul was making him out to be. I think that we have that fine line of being humble and yet not degrading or thinking too bad of ourselves or thinking bad about ourselves, because we are made in the image of God, and so we have a soul and a spirit, and we should be thankful that we are what we are, but we can't think more highly of ourselves than what we ought to think. And so David was not belittling himself. He was just saying that he didn't deserve or wasn't worthy of all the commotion that was going on about it. 10. What did Saul say he had done? Verse number 21. Had he ever said that before? When? Yep. So Saul on multiple occasions, and I think maybe he may have even said it in the cave of Adullam, if I'm not mistaken. Saul was not averse to admitting the fact that he had sinned. Did it do any good in his life? No. It's just the fact that we acknowledge that we've done wrong, that we've not done what God wants us to do, doesn't change a thing in our lives. People do it all the time, admitting, well, I know I shouldn't have done that, but they don't correct the problem, don't do what they're supposed to do, and so nothing changes in their life. Their relationship with God doesn't change. Yeah. That's good. All right, number 11. What did David ask for from Saul? Verse 24. I put down there, he just asked for the same treatment from Saul that he provided to Saul. He said, I've spared your life, spare my life. I did the right thing, you do the right thing. And that's all we can expect or ask for. That doesn't mean that we'll get it. And David did never get it, as far as that goes from Saul. But you can ask, and maybe sometimes people have a change of heart as far as what they say or think or do or how they're acting towards you. And then number 12, what did Saul say would happen to David? Verse number 25. All right, so he recognized because of the heart and the actions of life of David that there would be success in his life in one form or fashion. And we can understand that. Will we be successful in this life because we have a good heart and do the right thing? Not guaranteed. Yeah, that's true. Success, we won't all be millionaires, but we will be successful in the long run if we do the right thing. And that's what we need to understand in the light of David. He did have success in this life with the troubles that he had to face.
I think the big part of success is when you do the right thing with peace. You have peace in your heart. You don't feel bad about yourself all the time. You chose to do the right thing instead of
Yeah, I think the account with Abigail kind of shed light on that too. She acknowledged the fact that he would not feel right about himself if he had gone through with what he had planned to do. It says that. Anything else? Anybody else? Got a song number there?
273.
273. 273. Before we extend the Lord's invitation, we'll remind everybody of our meeting Sunday. Lord willing, we will be having Bible study at 9:30, worship at 10:30. Hope everyone can be here for that. Look around the room and see who is not here. We need to be checking on people, making sure that there isn't anything that we need to be doing or how we might be able to help them out. Dave, is Bobby okay? Not feeling well today. How's Sister Edna doing? About the same. Sister Sue.
Sunday, she's still having to go back home with healing. Going to Robertson.
She's got a lot of things going on in her life right now too. We need to continue to pray for her. I talked to Ronnie. He's had some pain in an arm. He's not doing well, but he's not able to get out a whole lot right now. I asked for prayers. There's a fellow that runs the Quick Fit down here. His name is Chris Harris, and his brother died Friday of cancer. And just talking to him, I've gotten to know him a little bit. He's followed Kurt in basketball and some of that. But he was let me know about that. So if you pray for him, that'd be good. Are there others? I know that Action's home with stomach problems. Rachel broke her toe. That doesn't sound like fun. Anybody else that we need to? Pray for Davin in the back. Robin's your mama. How's she doing?
She's starting to feel better. She'll have another treatment. So start off that way.
Can you pray for Big Joe? Yeah, Leella's starting to take a little bit of a toll on her. We see some changes in her. We need to pray for her and Jeremy. We continue to remember Sister Clarice's family and the problems that they're going through as well. They're in New Orleans, so not able to get down there and see them.
Ariel fell, Shannon's girlfriend. Ariel fell at school.
Fell at school.
And her knee that she had surgery on over Christmas break. She went back to the doctor and they don't know how bad
That's not a good thing there. You go through months and months of getting it back right. So we want to pray for her. Anybody else? All right, what was the number?
273.
273. All right, we'll use that as a hymn of invitation. I just want to look at 1 Samuel chapter 27. We were going to cover this tonight and didn't get to it, but I wanted to use this as to emphasize a point this evening. So if you have your Bibles and want to look at that, I'll just read it. We want to think about our relationship with the Lord as Christians for just a minute and the battles that we fight, because like David, we fight battles on a regular basis. That's a part of life. But I want to pay close attention to what happened to David on this particular situation. 1 Samuel chapter 27 and verse 1 says, "And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines, and Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel, so shall I escape out of his hand." David had just had opportunity to kill Saul, we saw in this chapter that we just looked at. David had been providentially cared for by God on this particular occasion and on other occasions that we have seen in our study of David. But what we see in David right here is a man who is down and in despair and discouraged about his life. It has caused him to make a decision to go away and not rely upon God in the decisions that he makes. He's decided to go down into the middle of the enemy camp, the Philistines, and decide to stay there as opposed to staying in Judah and Israel and handling the situation the way that God wanted him to handle it. He was basically running from the problem, saying, I'm going to die eventually here. But what had happened to David? What do we know about David in his life? Samuel had come to him and anointed him and said, God is going to make you king. Is that what David was saying about himself right now? No, he said, I'm going to die. He didn't believe what God had promised him and the things that were going to happen to him, and so he made a bad decision and went off down into this. And that chapter describes what kind of person he became while he was down here in the land of the Philistines. And it's not a pretty picture of David. He's a man after God's own heart who made a bad decision, who started feeling sorry for himself and feeling bad about the way his life was going, and it turned him into something that he wasn't. It'd be good for you to read that chapter and just see what David became when he turned away from God and started feeling bad about the way his life was going. But we want to take this picture and look at ourselves, because we can be the same thing. We can be trying to live our lives and believe in God and trying to live the Christian life, and things just overwhelm us to the point where we just throw up our hands and say, what's the point? What's the use? Why fight? It's all going to end up bad anyway. And when we do that, Satan's got a hold on us. He's got a hold on our hearts, and it turns us into something that we're not supposed to be. We've got to fight against that. We've got to hold on to the truth and do what God wants us to do and fight the fight, because people are watching us. And their lives are going to be molded and affected by us towards God if we do it the right way and handle it the right way. But if we don't, they're going to see that picture and it's going to drag them down as well. Thank goodness that God has given us a way that if we are in that situation, or if we're doing that such thing, or going in that direction, that we can turn it back around and start going in the right direction. And that we will be blessed from that point on. It doesn't take God, we turn our lives around, and it doesn't take God, well, I'll fix them. In 2 or 3 or 4 months, I'll put it back, things will get going better again. When we acknowledge the fact that we're sinning against God, have sinned against God, we repent of it, turn away from it, and pray God for forgiveness. At that point, we get that forgiveness, and it's no longer a situation that has to be worked on in that respect by God. He's put it behind it. It's gone forever. And we can see it that way when we want to, that it's straightened out and we can get on with our lives and doing the right thing. That's the greatest blessing that we've got as Christians in this life, is to have that opportunity to straighten our lives out if we would. David got his life turned around. David went on to become the king. David became a man after God's own heart that we read about and see in the books, in pages of the Bible. We can be that kind of influence as well in our lives if we just decide to do it. But we've got to put our lives in the hands of Christ by doing what Jesus has taught us to do. Not a Christian, we have to become a Christian so that we can get in the fight. Till we become a Christian, we're not even fighting for the right. We're on the wrong side if we know what we're supposed to do in becoming a Christian. But if we are a Christian and we've made a mistake, we can straighten it out and know that we can walk away from here tonight being right with the Lord and having the hope of heaven. I hope that if you need to make a change in your life, that you'll do it tonight while we have opportunity, while together we stand and while we sing.
The Lord will find a way for me. I know the Lord will find a way for me. If I walk in heaven's light, from the wrong into the right, I know the Lord will find a way for me. For if he grant to him and say, well done. For if he grant to him and say, well done. If I walk in heaven's light, shun the wrong and do the right, what if he grant to him and say, well done.
Our God, our Father in heaven, we come to you now thankful for the day you've given us and the hour we've had here to study portions of the word, Father. We ask you with each one of us that you're going to truly bless and take things that we've heard and applied to our lives, especially with our families and friends, that we accept what we know we should be. And we repent, Father, help us to do that also as soon as possible. My Father, that are rich and sick, Lord, especially our numbers and our families that need help physically right now, we should be with them, grant them a nice rest. Be with the medical staff and things that are being done, and treatments taken effect, that will desire help and more than have it, and you make something to do for us all. Mindful of those that are spiritually sick, help us to say things that are necessary now, that they also be returned. Let's pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.